So I went to 7 schools when I was growing up. Lived in 3 different countries. So when I came back from one country, I got dropped down into the year below where I should have been. Immediately impacted my schooling career per se.
Yeah.
What they said is you'll never go to college, let alone university. I did both. Did university. Started up my first business aged 18. Left university with the business. Grew it over the next 5 or 6 years. We are where we are today. 9 years on. What is it? 30 odd staff, 35 staff.
Yeah, and you've got your own podcast as well.
I do have my own podcast. Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, not as good as yours, but I have got a podcast, yeah.
Before you start this episode, please can you click subscribe below and follow our social handles in the description. It's a massive help and it keeps you up to date with all the exciting announcements from the podcast. So thanks very much for coming in and speaking to us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate it. Taking time out of your schedule. We'll crack on as we normally do with the first question, and we start every podcast in exactly the same way. So I'm going to put you under an immediate bit of pressure. Hopefully you're up for it. I'd just like you to try and take us from early life to now.
Yep.
And do it in the space of maybe 1-2 minutes tops.
2 minutes tops. Early life. Okay.
It should hopefully early life to now. So it should it should hone in all the important bits and miss out all the stuff that's maybe not as relevant.
Yeah, easy, fine. So I went to 7 schools when I was growing up, 7 different schools.
Wow.
Lived in 3 different countries, dyslexic and dyspraxic. So when I came back from one country, I got dropped down into the year below where I should have been. Okay. So that immediately impacted my schooling career per se.
Yeah.
Anyway, went through school, went to college, was told I wouldn't go to college, which was, nice, and they were clearly confident in me.
Never nice to hear.
No, exactly. What they said is you'll never go to college, let alone university. I did both. That was the main thing there.
Yeah.
So went from college to university, did university, started up my first business aged 18, business that actually had staff, if that makes sense. I had ideas when I was 12, 13, but the one that was actually making money. Left university with the business, grew it over the next 5 or 6 years. We are where we are today. 9 years on, 30 odd staff, 35 staff. Had a few other businesses in the meantime, and we're having a podcast talking about it. So that's the reality.
Yeah, and you've got your own podcast as well.
I do have my own podcast. Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, not as good as yours, but I have got a podcast. Yeah.
Behave. Listen, you're a lot further on than where we are, and one day maybe we can be as successful as what you've been with.
I think this is the first podcast collaboration that we might have done.
It's certainly mine. I don't think I've sat down with anybody that have done a similar thing. Mm-hmm. So that's unique.
That is, yeah.
So there's a few holding the mics and a unique conversation, which is what it's all about.
Everything's different.
It's what it's all about. As long as you don't start singing, we'll be...
stand up like Boyzone.
Yeah, we'll be okay. So take us back then to your sort of early life then, Oliver. So you mentioned about school and, you had many different schools, 7 different schools, which is crazy. I only had 1, I think.
Yeah, you were lucky.
Lucky. So why was that? Was that down to sort of moving around? Because I know your family's got a bit of a military background, hasn't it?
It's exactly that. So in the military, you move around every 3 years. And as obviously a child growing up in the military, or behind the wire as they call it, you have to get dragged along with your parents, right?
Yeah.
Unless you end up in boarding school, which I did for some of that time, which I hated.
Yeah.
You end up going to different schools, and that is the reality of it. It's quite difficult.
So boarding school, what's that like?
In hindsight, it probably should have been more fun than it actually was, and actually if I had the time again, I'd have probably done it differently.
Yeah.
In the then and the present time, I suppose, when I was at boarding school, I hated it. I hated the fact that I was away from home. I hated the fact that you're in a room of people that, when you're asleep, they could hit you, or you could hit whatever. Like, there was genuine kind of fear being in there.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't the best at school at the best of times, but...
How old were you at that point?
What was I? 12? 12, 11, yeah, something like that. So you were kind of like, well, are they bullying me or is it banter? I don't really know. I don't know.
Do I say anything back? Do I get involved?
Do I hit them harder? Are they going to hit me harder?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really difficult, and I know a few of them now after I left school.
Okay.
And I was speaking to them. It was only the other week actually. I was talking about showing this guy around called James. And he was, I was at the school for about 6 months. He joined, I showed him around what they call the boarding house, right?
Yeah.
I was like, this is the tuck shop, this is where matron is, all the sort of stuff that you might associate with boarding school. And anyway, it turned out that he was the guy that was the bully. He ended up bullying me, and I left because of him.
Okay.
But I showed the bugger around, obviously, the dorms. But they said, why did you leave? And I was like, well, just because I was being bullied. And they're like, no, you weren't being bullied. We already liked you. And I was like, shit, have I just completely misinterpreted this? Were they just being, was it banter? Was it fun? Maybe I shouldn't have left.
You were a top friend.
Maybe. Is that friendship? I don't know. But yeah, it was, I didn't enjoy school in reality.
Yeah.
That was the kind of candid truth there.
Yeah, so walking out of school, you kind of won GCSE.
Yeah, one GCSE.
And kind of going to front end, running successful organisation and podcast and various other bits and pieces that you're involved in, which we'll get into. So in terms of your school life, my daughter's 17 on Tuesday. My son's 9. I've always tried and relate things to my situation with them and how they feel and stuff. So what do you think about kind of school and education at the moment from your experience in terms of how that supports people that have gone through a similar process to yourself?
At the moment, school and education, I think, is getting better. I think when I was going through, and this was only 15 years ago, it was totally different. Yeah. It was totally different. You know, I'd gone from boarding school, I'd done comp schools, I'd done private, I'd done every type of school.
Yeah.
And it was just shit throughout, basically. Yeah. You had classes of 6 people, you had classes of 30 people. And they say that you have more attention in a small class. Granted, you do. But actually, if you are neurodiverse or dyslexic or dyspraxic or whatever it might be, you still can't fit that mould of school. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You might have a little bit more support. They might tell you to, have extra time in an exam or whatever. But if your mind doesn't work in the way that
you can have all day in the exam, it doesn't make any difference, does it? Yeah.
If you can't tick those boxes and you can't answer the questions in the way they want you to answer them, you're not going to get through school, no matter how much time or support you've got. Yeah. And I think people are becoming more understanding of that as time goes on. Education system is changing. We know that. But it's a long way off.
Were your parents kind of aware of that when you were going through school?
Yeah, they were very supportive. Yeah. They knew something was up.
Yeah,
they knew that it wasn't me being stupid per se.
Because that's the kind of, there's a real line, isn't there? And I listened to parents at Freddie's school and Faith when she was younger, and you hear parents' conversations on the playground, and you speak to people, and it's kind of, I think there's a lot more these days acceptance and conversation around people that are neurodiverse, or you've got those things going on. But I think back years and years ago, you were just looked at as naughty or inconsiderate, or you're just being an arsehole to the teacher, or you haven't got time to do this, or you're choosing not to do it and you're really pushing back. Like that if I look back to when Faith was going through school, which again was 5-6 years ago, really, at that sort of an age, it was most common. There was no real conversation about that, really. It was more around just she's misbehaving or he's misbehaving.
Yeah, there you go. It's your fault. You're the disruptive child. You're the one that's making all these kids distracted, for instance. And it might be because you're not getting the attention that you need. It might be because if I'm not enjoying something, or if I can't understand something, then I might look like I'm zoning out or focusing on other things or daydreaming or whatever. And maybe I am, but arguably maybe I'm just trying to compute what's going on.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. If somebody's if French lessons are a prime example.
Yeah,
I hated French, right?
Yeah.
And I was
not
kicked
a fan
out.
Either. Not
I was kicked out of French, and I went up to the deputy head's office, and I was up there every French lesson for a couple of years.
Yeah,
I ended up knowing the deputy head by his first name because it got to that level.
Yeah,
really nice guy called Trevor. Anyway, the reason I was distracted in French is because I was trying to go, what does it mean? How do I compute that? How do I make it work in my mind? It's not that I'm not listening, it's that I'm trying to make it work for me, if that makes sense. And they don't understand that. Teachers don't understand that. They're starting to.
Yeah.
But when I was at school, it was very difficult to get that across.
What practical things can teach? Because I'm just speaking from experience here. I know I've spoken to sort of 3 or 4 teachers over the last sort of year of doing the podcast about various different things. So if you had to from somebody in your position with your experience, if you had to educate them on how best to deal with that situation, what would you say from someone with that experience?
That's really difficult because I'm actually not a very good teacher myself. So in terms of even onboarding guys into the business when it was smaller, teaching somebody something I find incredibly difficult.
Okay.
So to be able to comment on how a teacher could teach better.
Somebody should be teaching.
I could give it a pump, but it wouldn't be right, if that makes sense. Because I can barely even tell my girlfriend, what to do when I need to tell her that I've done something and it's not correct. It's like I can't constructively teach somebody, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I do a lot of shooting, and I took my girlfriend to go shooting, and I was trying to tell her how to shoot, and I was like, well, it's easy. You just stand there, you put the gun to your shoulder, and you just shoot it. And she's like, yeah, but how do you do it? How do you stand there? What do you do? What do you look at? And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, you just look, and it's easy. It's really hard for me to be able to communicate what you should be doing in a way that people can understand. And you know, that I'm sure is the same with a lot of people that have gone through school. They know it's wrong, but they don't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
And just giving people extra time is not the way to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes that person feel they're doing something, but it doesn't actually constructively give them any support. I think half the battle with this sort of stuff, it's understanding and communication with that individual, because everybody is different, aren't they? And people learn and communicate in different ways.
And I don't think calling people out like they used to do in class is the way to do it. And it is changing in terms of, you know, they would go, right, you're the dyslexic or you're dyspraxic. You need to sit in the corner. You have a teacher which will help you in class. She'll write the notes for you, or she'll do whatever. And you're basically putting a badge on someone and going, you're the special child. You sit in the corner with a person who'll help you, and I'll talk to the majority of the class while she just relays things in a different way. You know, you're being segregated to a certain extent, you know. And actually that, in hindsight, was probably negative. At the time, I didn't really think about it. And I don't think it happens in that way anymore. I think everybody is treated with a lot more respect at school, and a lot more equally. A lot more equally. They used to have specific classes you'd go into, and that's fine, and they may well still do. I don't have kids at school. But in terms of being put in the corner of a class and gone, here's a tutor, they'll help you. That's not a constructive way to teach kids.
No, singling someone out isn't constructive.
No.
Supporting them in the right way as part of a group is constructive.
But questions are critical as well, I think. And at school, you're told to ask questions, but if you ask too many questions, you also feel stupid. Do you know what I mean? In a class, you go, miss, I don't get it, miss, I don't get it, miss, I don't get it. And you ask too many times, you go, actually, maybe I just shouldn't ask, because clearly everybody else gets it. Clearly it's me that's the idiot here.
Do you know what? That is exactly it, because when I spoke to Faith about when she was studying for her GCSEs and she was nervous about it and all this stuff, and we were talking about options for college and what she wanted to do next, and she was the last person in her friend group to know what she wanted to do, still doesn't know what she wants to do. Everyone in my friend group, they've got a course, they know what they want, they know what they want to do for the next 20 years. And I'm sort of sitting there thinking, no, that's just, I know that's not accurate. I know that's not right. And when we were going through kind of the options available to her and stuff, there was a heck of a lot of pressure to pick something, anything, just something to get going with something. And I understand you got to pick something, you got to make a choice, but I kind of found it difficult to find a bridge between just take the risk and just go and do something and enjoy it and have some experience versus trying to follow something that you really want to do, because you don't know what you're going to be doing in 5-10 years time
at all. I mean, I when I was a lot younger, 6 or 7, I wanted to be a bin man. Seriously.
Nice.
Seriously. And Mum reminds me of this, and I used to walk down the road and there was a bin lorry there. And she said, you always used to ask me if you could push the button and make the bins go into the lorry. I mean, cool as a kid to push the button, big thing goes and bins and whatever. And that, you know, if someone asked me back then when I was 6 or 7, what do you want to do? Well, I want to be a bin man. Random, but that was the reality. You asked me at school what I wanted to do. Absolutely no idea. Like no idea at all. I know I wouldn't have probably wanted to go into anything that requires too much academia or qualification, knowing that frankly I just didn't like it. It would have probably been something creative. I did a bit of practical bricklaying, for instance. I was quite practical in that sense, because I thought, well, that might be the way I go. I might go into construction, for instance. Didn't really get on with that either. To go into where I am now was a complete accident. Like, it wasn't planned. No one knows what they want to do.
No, I agree. I think I got to 25, 26, and I knew I wanted to work for myself. I knew I wanted to run my own business, but I didn't really know in what, doing what, how I would go about doing any of that sort of stuff. And you just got to take a gamble and just get on with it, haven't you? There's no right or wrong time to do it.
No, I mean, I went to college. I did media and TV, right? I enjoyed that, and that was the first time that I had respect for tutors, for teachers, right? You didn't call them sir, you didn't call them miss, you called them by their first name. You know, I can remember his name was George. So I called him George, he'd call me Ollie. You could wear whatever you wanted to wear. Didn't have to wear uniform, didn't have to have your tie on, didn't have to have your jumper, whatever the hell you had to wear, which again was good. You could turn up, you didn't have to necessarily turn up. It wasn't, you know, a 9 to 5, for instance. There wasn't written exams, all that kind of stuff. You could respect them, they could respect you, and that was good. And at that point, I kind of thought, okay, I am enjoying this. I can learn from this.
It's more life, though, isn't it? Real reality.
And I think that is the reality. I think as soon as you go to somewhere, sixth form to a certain extent, but I didn't do it, but I've seen people do it. But in terms of going to college and then university, or even going through an apprenticeship scheme, for instance, which I think are brilliant, you do learn life skills, and you realise at that point what the real world is like, because it's so fake at school.
Yeah.
If you don't get it right, you aren't going to succeed, which is bollocks.
Yeah.
Total bollocks.
It's a bit like driving. You're taught how to pass your test.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you're not taught how to drive.
Yeah.
Like when I think back to my driving, I don't go down the street now doing this on every single mirror that I can see and doing, you just don't do that. It is just fake.
But it's, and I think Elon Musk said it really, really well, where he said at school, you're told to argue over 3,000 or 4,000 words. Try to sell something over 3,000 or 4,000 words.
Yeah.
To prove a point over 3,000 or 4,000. In real life, you have 5-10 seconds.
Yeah.
Tell me what your solution is in the shortest possible way.
Yeah.
Not write an essay on how you're going to cure this.
Yeah.
Just tell me how you're going to do it very simply. An elevator pitch, literally, not an essay pitch.
Yeah.
And I think that is the difference between school and between the real life. Is like actually people in the real world sometimes haven't got the time to actually apply themselves and explain in grave detail why something's gone wrong. Whereas in school, to get the grades, you have to explain it in such minute detail that it almost just becomes an exercise for the sake of an exercise.
Yeah. And
I think it's just a totally different way of working.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the way that's received as well, it's kind of, if you had a business person, a successful business person for a number of years involved in the school setup, I think the results would be completely different to what you've got now. A lot more kind of, like you said, less of the kind of essay work of trying to learn and more life skills. Yeah. And that if I look back to my schooling, I would have loved to have learned about, things that I learned. I mean, I had a job. I worked door to door for 2.5 years selling charities, 100% commission in all weathers when I was sort of 17. I worked in a call centre for a couple of years as well. Again, all commission. I learnt more in those 3.5 years than I've learnt in any lesson, any job pretty much that's geared me up to have a stab at running our business.
I tell you what, the biggest lesson I learnt was during COVID. So to put it in context, we had Pinpoint Media, we still have Pinpoint Media, right? The main business. Film, animation, on location, campaigns, whatever. You have to be on site to create these campaigns for clients, right? Great. Clients were locking the doors. You weren't going on site to do these shoots, for instance. And at the time, we only did video. This was 3 years ago. Okay, fine. So we can't do video. So we'll go into animation. Okay, fine. So the revenue's not coming from animation specifically to be able to weather the storm. This was before the Bank of Rishi became a thing, with all the CBILS and bounce backs and furlough. And I had some contacts in the medical world that were doing hand sanitizer and units that you put your hand under and then the sanitizer, all the kind of PPE stuff, nitrile gloves, whatever. We started a business called Easy Breathing. We had it for 12 weeks. We did 11.5 million pounds worth of business.
Wow.
We signed a deal with Amazon to distribute 30 million products specifically to them, which they were selling onto the NHS. We thought, great. We thought, this is brilliant. We're solving a problem. We're making some money. We're being able to fund Pinpoint because there is no Bank of Rishi at this point.
Yeah.
The money can siphon through, keep the cash flow going, keep the staff employed, everybody's happy, right?
Yeah.
Might not make some profit, but you'll be able to use that as cash flow.
Yeah.
Cool. Everybody's happy. This deal with Amazon was going through 12 ships from China, 12 ships coming over. So that takes 12 weeks, a week a ship, basically.
Yeah. So
it's about £1 million a ship. We factored the money through a company who basically, because we had the PO, gave you the money. You could pay the £5.5 million deposit to the factory in China, cash, off you go. They'd do the products, they'd make the products, they'd put them in the packages, whatever. Great. At this point, you still made no money. You haven't been paid by Amazon at this point at all.
Yeah.
Okay, it goes on the ship, fine. Comes across, delivered, great, delivered, great, delivered. And we knew the terms and conditions of the invoice of the contract was we can cancel on or up to the penultimate order, but we can't after that, right?
So you could effectively have 11 orders.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they can cancel, right? Now, the way it was worked was that the money, the profit, let's just say, so we didn't have to, we washed our face with the revenue from everything else in terms of paying suppliers and whatever. The profit was in the last piece, the last order. What did they do? Well, they cancelled. They cancelled the penultimate order. So we never, ever, ever made profit on that. We never made money on that. We just simply siphoned money in and out to other people, essentially.
Wow.
It was a separate business, ring-fenced it, and we're still going through a lawsuit with Amazon to sue them for it. There's no money in it. but they knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
They knew, you hear these horror stories with Amazon. And the reason I say that story is not because of the numbers or not because of any of that. It was the best life lesson that I've ever had.
Yeah.
It was an £11.5 million MBA.
Yeah.
But I learned so much to have your contracts straight, to make sure that you have cash flow, make sure that you know your profit margins, make sure you know the delivery points, make sure you know who you're going into business with fundamentally. There's not too many people in a chain so that it's not, if it's a penny cheaper, we're going elsewhere sort of thing. Own the IP, all of these things, which I only learned because I had to. But I had no qualifications or understanding of how to do that. I just went, fuck it, I'm going to go into that world. I know people that can advise us. They'll come into that world with me. They didn't necessarily have the business acumen, but they did have the medical and supply acumen, if that makes sense, right? So it was a perfect storm in that sense. We all had little bits we brought to the party. I learned so much, so much. And it's taken 2 years to tell that story.
Yeah.
You can Google it and you can see the press releases. Good news, good news, good news. Nobody, this is the first time actually, nobody's got that on air, that we fucked it, basically.
Blimey. Yeah. And that's big numbers, which I know you sort of say, you know, it's not about the numbers, and I know it's not. It's about the principle and about the learnings and the example. But because of those numbers, it makes it massively significant.
It does, but the numbers are almost irrelevant, because whether you were doing 5 quid or 11 quid or 100 million quid or whatever it was, for instance, the lesson is still the same.
Absolutely.
Right? I could have been selling penny chews in the park, for instance, and you could have still been fucked over in the same way. Yeah. It's exactly the same whether you scale it up or down. Yeah. It's just at what point you learn that lesson. Yeah. And you're never going to learn that lesson by doing an MBA at university or doing a lesson at school or whatever, because it's all in a book. Yeah. You know, if you do it in real life, you learn from it. If I make that same mistake again, I'm an idiot. Yeah. But I wasn't to start with, because I didn't know what I was doing. I learned from that, we move on. Great. But if you make the same mistake twice, that's when it's an issue. Yeah,
you've got to learn from the mistake. And like you said there, there's certain things you can learn by walking the walk and certain things you can learn by reading and doing all that sort of stuff. And I'm all for self-development and all that sort of stuff. You know, I've done that for a number of years. I think it's massively beneficial to read up on things, research things, read books, listen to podcasts, watch videos. But nothing... You know, for me, and again, with my example, you know, there's been stuff that's happened in this business where, you know, I've cost the business several £1,000s in an order at a point when we really, really needed it at the start because of wrong decisions, because of lack of experience, or because I've gone and dealt with something in a certain way, and you absolutely learn from it. If you don't learn from it, you're just never going to get anywhere. And I think that's a skill in itself, being able to realise you fucked it. Yeah. Find out, you know, fix the problem, find out, fix the problem, learn, and then look at moving forward. How the hell can I make sure this doesn't happen again? What am I going to take from it? There's a lot of owners that I've come into contact with, especially in our industry, telecoms and IT. Most owners, I'm generalising here, but most owners are arseholes. They're the most egotistical idiots that you're ever going to meet. I don't go to the events because I don't want to hang around with those people, because I'm not interested in palling it with them. But they can't understand and realise when they make a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's such a weakness.
Yeah, and they're so power hungry. You know, and you know, if we'd maybe have made that deal and it had come off, and you know, to be fair, we did do the deal. Like, it was all completely kosher. It's just they fucked us over. Yeah. It's not as if we actually technically made any mistake, apart from the fact that they were just bullies. Amazon were just bullies, right? Yeah. Because it was all kosher. The point is, if that had come off, I wonder if we'd have looked at that lesson in a different way, as to, oh, this is easy. Let's do it again, but bigger. Let's see if we can go into this industry full time. Yeah. I wonder if it would have changed my trajectory in life quite significantly to, this is actually significant money, and it's a piece of piss. We've done it once, we can do it again. Let's do 100 million.
Quick wins, yeah.
And then we'd have fucked it, and it would have been a much bigger fuck up, I think, because we were learning as we were going. Yeah. I'm almost pleased we made a mistake, because I don't ever want to go into that world.
Yeah, well, it's going to make you make different decisions in the future and be more, well, not necessarily more risk adverse, but certainly more thorough.
100%.
In terms of 100%. Thinking around what's going on and stuff like that.
Well, it's been fantastic for our current business. Yeah. Because since that happened, we went from 12 staff to 33 in a year and a half, 2 years. You know, we're going to be 40 plus next year. Yeah. You know, we're doubling revenue year on year. We know how to do bigger business, so our numbers are bigger. We're more confident in justifying those numbers. We own the IP. We know how to set up processes. We know our world fundamentally because we knew it beforehand.
Yeah.
We diversified into other areas, from strategy through to social, through to campaign planning and media buying, but we still fundamentally got that world.
Yeah.
But what it allowed us to do was go, if we don't get it, we don't touch it. And that allows you to become more focused. Because you can't be the master of everything.
Yeah.
You know, and if someone wanted me to, you know, and I'm going into this world of kind of looking at areas to invest in, and I want to get into the startup world again in terms of helping people out and whatever, I find great excitement from that. But if I really don't understand it, like your world, for instance, no idea. So I wouldn't feel comfortable advising or giving you a steer, like that teacher question. You know, I don't know how to teach people, so I can't comment on how they should be teaching people.
Yeah.
I can have an opinion, but I can't tell them how to do it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you have to be able to walk the walk before you can talk the talk.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, you want to have, if you are going to advise and say something, you need to have the confidence and experience behind it, I think, for it to warrant any weight or have any relevance to that person.
Exactly. It's like podcasting. We've had a good conversation about that because I get it, you get it.
Yeah.
But you asked me to talk to you about anything that you do.
I get it loosely.
You get it more than a lot of other people, right?
Yeah.
But anything else that you do, you know, I can give you ideas and maybe a steer, but, you know, it's probably not worth its weight.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you've got to get out there and you've got to do it for yourself. I think you learn so much in the last 4.5 years we've learned from, you know, we've made more mistakes than we've made probably good decisions. It's just is what it is. It's the life. But you got, I think the way that I look at that, I enjoy it.
You've got to kiss a lot of frogs.
I make a mistake and I think, okay, it's not, the mistake's gone. Oof, unless it's terminal. But and then it's a bit of a bigger problem.
But like, even if it is terminal, I think you can still move on. Now, you know, you've had people on this podcast that I know very well, that you know very well, who've nearly committed suicide because of the mistakes they've made. Yeah. But they brushed themselves down and moved on. And that could have been a terminal mistake. It was a terminal mistake for the business. Yeah. It wasn't, thankfully, for them. Yeah. But they still went, I fucked it, but I can improve on this next time because I know why.
I think that's real strength, is having the humbleness to be able to say, look, this is this is a mistake or whatever. And if you, I mean, I'm touch wood, feel great that I've never felt in a position where I've wanted to go and commit suicide, or I've been that low. I've never, and I hope I don't get to that point. But the strength to pull yourself back from that, from speaking to different people that we've had on, from Craig behind me to Daniela to other people that have, you know, thought about doing that, and then bringing that back round full circle to then be successful in their own right, self-made, and genuinely, more importantly than that, actually feel like they're making a valuable contribution to themselves, their family, happy, genuine happiness, not fake Instagram bollocks happiness, real happiness in themselves. That's a journey that we want to know about. That's stuff that we want to talk about. I think that's amazing.
It's the way the world's going, though, is like looking at it from our lens of an industry, which is fundamentally content, right, and social engagement. The generations that are coming up through the ranks, right, so Gen Z and below, it's all about authenticity. Yeah. So when we used to have, you know, influencers with 1 million+ followers, and they'd hold up this bottle of Evian water, I'm assuming it's Evian, soon to be sponsored by Evian. Yeah.
Other waters are available.
Other waters are available. When you hold up this bottle, you go, look at this, I'm Kim Kardashian with some Evian water. Everyone goes, yeah, I'll buy that. That's brilliant. Yeah. Absolute bollocks. Now it's not about that. Yeah. Now it's about the nano and the micro and the authenticity around that. You know, you got 1,000 followers, 2,000 followers, whatever. People are more likely to buy from that because they go, actually, I know, Aaron, I know you. I know what you are, who you are, what you do. I know that is a good product because you believe in it. Yeah. And I trust you. Yeah. Rather than, fuck me, it's Kim Kardashian, I'll buy that because I know who she is, but I don't really know what she does.
What do you put that down to? Do you think you put that down to people being more clued up and knowledgeable about things like holding the bottle up and saying this is what it is, and people automatically will think, well, you just advertise and that's not yours? Because there's a lot of famous people that will put their name on the front of stuff, and fair enough, that's good business for them. But they've not made the product, they're not interested in the product, they're just putting their name to something.
Yeah, there's brand association in that sense, and collaboration, right?
Which works, I think, to a degree sometimes, but
yeah, I think, you know, there are good brand collaborations out there, and they do work really well because you have the loyal following of both brands coming together and maybe seeing some sort of synergy or usage in that, right? But in terms of why people are dialing back from Kim Kardashian holding up a bottle of water, it's because they are bored of being sold to. Yeah, they know now. They're intelligent enough to understand that she's holding it up like that because she's selling it. She's getting paid
for that. Yeah.
And she maybe doesn't believe in it, right? And it's all about that believability and authenticity and reality. It really is, and native creativity, right? You're going to see a huge change in the next couple of months, maybe even the next couple of years, where companies will stop having really, really glossy content across everything. And by that I mean instructing people to come in, film for a couple of days, make a big corporate video, make it all very glossy and shiny.
Yeah.
Because people look at that and go, yeah, you've paid 20 grand for that. And it's not really what your company's like, is it? You've set that up to make it look nice.
People know that as well. That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's exactly the same with influencers. You've set it up to make it look nice. What they really want is they want people within the organisation or people that believe in the organisation or want to be associated with it or a product to go, actually, I just believe in it enough to tell you it's really good. I love Evian, for instance, buy it because I just genuinely think it's excellent water, better than whatever else is. That kind of thing people believe and buy into more. If you get paid, it's a byproduct, right? It's fine. But with our podcast, for instance, take it back to that, the sponsors we have on that podcast are sponsors because we believe in them and they believe in us, right?
Yeah.
It's not just us going, great, give us some money, we'll take anybody.
It's a partnership, yeah.
Exactly. And and that works really well because we go, right, Ecology or we go Capsule, whoever it might be, they are genuinely good businesses making a real difference.
Yeah.
And we'd use them anyway if it wasn't to do with the podcast.
Yeah.
And that's the reality. That's the reality.
But that's what people, I think that in this day and age, that probably why that trajectory, why that change is happening is because people are more clued up and intelligent around how they view what content is being delivered to them. And I think that's probably why things like TikTok have gone huge because you mentioned before about this big essay pitch or a big or a very small elevator pitch in a small window. I think there are still people out there influencing TikTok, which is just they are holding up the water and saying buy this. But I think you get more of that on platforms such as Instagram.
100%.
And Facebook. Then when you go and flip over to TikTok, it's a bit more genuine.
Yeah.
There might be a load of crap on TikTok, but there's also a lot of genuine raw content on TikTok, which I think people buy into a bit more.
Exactly that. Exactly that. And making mistakes, going back to that story about the fuck up in business, right?
Yeah.
Making mistakes people find value in.
Yeah.
If you're perfect and you waltz out of school and go into university and go from university into whatever and you happen to have gone to Oxford and you become a prime minister or whatever, people look at that and go fake.
Yeah.
That's why Matt Hancock is getting so ridiculed on I'm a Celebrity, because they just go, you're fake, I don't believe you, I don't like you. That's the reality. But everybody else in I'm a Celebrity, they've either made a mistake, they've got a chip on their shoulder, they've either done well, but they've done well for themselves. For instance, Mike Tyndall, for instance, is a sports person. He has become a sports person through grit and determination. Yeah. And yes, he's made some mistakes in his life. We all know the mistakes that he might have made. I've made mistakes. People believe in you more so because of that, which is why TikTok works. Because TikTok is a platform for reality. Yeah. But reality that isn't staged. Yeah. Much. Yes, fine, companies now try and stage it to a certain extent to make it
more difficult though, isn't it?
They make it look like UGC, which is user-generated content. But actually, real UGC, if you can get brand into real UGC, user-generated content, you're away. Yeah. You're away. And Be Real, for instance, the platform fundamentally focused on Gen Z, you can't pay for advertising on there, but you are starting to see smart advertising campaigns. Okay. So, for instance, you might have 1,000 friends or followers on Be Real, right? Yeah. And you're a cafe. Yeah. And you take a photo when it says time to be real. You take a photo of buy one, get one free for the next 20 minutes. Yeah. Send it out to your friends and followers. Yeah. Boom. All of a sudden, you're going to get people coming in. You're not paying for that. You're being real, you're being authentic, but you've just written on a piece of paper. It's not graphical or anything like that. It's just basic.
Honest timing.
Exactly. And it's smart, and it's quick, and it's palatable, and it's understandable. It's not, right, we're going to throw a load of shit down your throat for the next week and hope you buy some Coca-Cola. Yeah, yeah. And that is the way the world's going. Yeah. A lot of content is out there. More content will be out there, but it's making it cut through in an authentic and real way.
It's not really annoys me about Instagram specifically is just the crap that people put on there. I put a video on TikTok, I think it was, about it. I don't know why I didn't put it on Instagram. Talking about Instagram. Shows how much I know about marketing. Yeah. But yeah, like it just, you're scrolling through and I ended up unfollowing a load of people because of it. Because I just felt like I'd wasted 10 minutes in an evening. I'm consuming this crap about, and it was just these like quotes and phrases from allegedly successful people. I didn't know who they was. They might be successful, I don't know. But they were kind of just talking generally about take risks and do this and do that. And I just thought, this is the Instagram is flooded with all that stuff. There's nothing genuine in there. Like, I struggle to find stuff that I can really engage with on Instagram, because it's just, I feel like Instagram is kind of that platform where people are fake more often than not. You've got all the followers and all this sort of stuff, and a lot of the promo stuff goes on Instagram, and it's all 12 holidays a year, and I've got 3 Ferraris, and they're all in matte black, and all this stuff's going on. I'm great, and I'm really happy. And respect, you might not be happy. You're probably miserable, and you're just shoving it on Instagram.
And how old are you? How old are you?
34.
34.
Why did I have to think about that then?
That's weird. Before I asked that question, I said you're 30. I was thinking you're 34. I don't know where I got that from. Maybe
35 soon. I keep getting reminded I'm halfway to 40.
When's your birthday?
In January.
January?
My mother asks 27. And she winds me up constantly, and then I'll just say, "Well, you're most of the way to 30, so I don't care."
Yeah, exactly.
You're worse.
There's wisdom with age, isn't there?
Yeah.
But in terms of your Instagram feed, then, I imagine the majority of your stuff that you see on there is probably on the Instagram wall, right? People have uploaded the photo and it's on there. They've got a little caption or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. Because if you dial it back to Gen Z, and you have a look at their Instagram feed, it won't be on the wall, it'll be on their stories.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's bang, photo on, great, it's off the next day. But it's that living in the moment to a certain extent, but not faking too much.
So in terms of Pinpoint Media then, Oliver, how did that idea come about? What was the kind of plan? When did that happen?
So the plan, there wasn't really a plan, I suppose. But what happened was, university, I wanted to be a presenter. So I wanted to go in, do TV presenting. You know, I actually thought, right, Top Gear looks like quite a cool thing.
Yeah.
How do I become a Top Gear presenter? I like cars.
Yeah.
That was the reality. Anyway, quite difficult is the answer.
Yeah.
Quite difficult to become a presenter. But the way that presenters tend to work is they have their own production company.
Yeah, okay.
Chris Evans has one, Rowan Atkinson has one, Clarkson has one, for instance, right?
Yeah.
Thus meaning that you can technically, if you have an idea, get it produced and whatever. You know, that is a way to do it, right? That was the idea. It didn't really work. So I thought, right, okay, cool. I'm going to make some videos for companies, right? Just to cut my teeth in content. Put something out on Twitter, and I said, what was it? It was like a video for 50 quid or something like that.
So when was this? Was this
This was at university year 2.
Uni.
So I was
18,
18, yeah. So I was 18. Shoved it on Twitter. I said, right, video, 50 quid, you know, let me know, we're all cool, kind of thing. Had this gym chain contact me, we went and did this.
Okay. Yeah.
Did this video for this gym chain for like 50 quid. Anyway, I thought, okay, this is interesting. It's kind of fun, being paid to do some stuff that you quite enjoy. Fine, cool. Let's do a model where it's kind of critical mass. So we go 3 videos for £150 a video.
Yeah.
Right. And that was fine because at university you could afford to do that, let's say, because actually you had no cost apart from maybe a student loan and maybe some beer money, for instance, right? So that was cool. We started to kind of grow because this critical mass model meant we could undercut other agencies or other companies or production companies as it was then, because it was just video. Grew. Year 3-ish of university, we had enough content coming through to be doing kind of a couple of grand a week, which meant I had to have an editor because I was doing the filming and the editing at this time, right?
Okay, yeah.
So I was doing everything from selling to filming to editing to driving around the country, doing all this kind of stuff. I liked the filming bit, I hated the editing because you were sat down in an office, right?
Yeah. So
I was going out and filming all this stuff, hired an editor, he was doing the editing, cool. That then meant that we had a bit more capacity, so that meant we could do a bit more selling. We got to a point where we had to then get someone to go and do the filming, and it grew very organically at that point, until it got to a point where we essentially needed to make a decision on margins. Do we continue to do the stack it high, sell it cheap business model, which is critical mass, and only gets you so far unless you've got 30 or 40 shoots coming on a day.
Yeah.
We were doing that a week, but a day. Or do we change it slightly? And do we make it where it's actually more competitive in cost, high quality, but still low cost, but more competitive, right?
Yeah.
So we started to manipulate and change all of this and have a look at margins and grow the business in that sense. We moved around different offices, etc. Where we really, really started to see quite a significant return come in was by going to events companies, big events, small events, whatever, and going, don't worry about paying us to come to site. We'll do you a free marketing video, let's say, for next year. But what we want to do, and this was 3 years probably before GDPR became a thing, what we want is your database.
Yeah.
We want your database of people, companies that are exhibiting at your event, for instance, like let's say the Game Fair or Business Live or whatever it might be. I want that database 2 or 3 months before the actual event itself.
Yeah.
So what I can do is get on the phone and I can go, you're exhibiting at that place for 300 quid, we'll come by your stand and we'll do you a 30-second video. This was before high volume content on social media was a thing, right?
Yeah.
So we would then go, great, cool. You'd be picking the phone up. Everyone would go, yeah, whatever, 300 quid, cool, I'm there anyway. You do 30 or 40 of these in a day at this point, right? 300 quid each, great. Bang. Then you're making good margin. Then you can make a nice video for the events company. Then you can start to invest in better people, better brand, better marketing, better website, whatever. Then we had the pandemic that kind of hit to a certain extent. We were kind of tweaking, changing, growing. We probably did $1.5 million before that. Pandemic hit, and we changed everything. We obviously locked the doors. Well, we had to lock the doors.
Yeah.
We went into this other business that we sort of started, but we also took a step back from the mothership, so Pinpoint, and went, what do we want to do? We can't continue to scale to the 5, 6, 8, 10, 12 million revenue that we need to be doing.
Yeah.
We can grow, but it might have its limits. So we'll go into strategy, media, distribution, social, organic, paid, the lot, essentially. Full agency, 360 agency.
Yeah.
So we did. We rebranded. We hired some properly expensive people because we took out sufficient funding to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And we invested into the business. I think we put £1 million and a bit pounds into the business over that year, rebranding the lot. That was the best thing we've ever done. We stepped back, we looked at it, we went, no. We're going to invest heavily. We're going to make sure that we're not necessarily as profitable as we could be for this period, but we're going to look at the next 2 or 3 years. And that was one of the better things that we did because we could then grow, scale, bring better talent in that was far better than us, and make it into something that was much, much, much bigger than the sum of its parts.
So that's quite a big decision to make, considering you arguably at that time were still doing okay. For a normal person looking at it, thinking, okay, 300, doing sort of things like that, like those events, 12, 15 grand of income and turnover in that event with you're there anyway. You're seeing all these people, very little cost of sales going into that. So you've got a really high margin.
Right? Then you retain them as well. You do their videos in 3 months' time. So it's a beautiful business model.
Yeah.
But it's got its limits.
So it takes a big decision to come away from that sort of a business model and thinking that's not really right for us. We need to change that when it's already working.
Yes, I think the reason that we did it is because it wasn't going to ever be as big as we could see it potentially needing to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because granted, you're doing good money, and I was 26. Probably I'm 29 now, so probably 26. Doing $1 million, $1.5 million a year, for instance, but it was so stressful because the churn was so great and the margins were so tight that we didn't have the ability to be able to get really, really, really good people in to take it to that next level. We had amazing filmmakers, we had amazing editors, we had amazing animators, but we didn't have the margins to take a senior team in. Right? So that therefore meant that it was me, business partner Fergus, who was basically doing everything. We're doing the sales, right? We're doing the ops, we're doing the HR, we're doing the management. And that is sustainable to a certain extent for the 4 or 5 years that we had it at that point. But to take it to a point where actually we can be bigger than the sum of its parts, you have to make a decision whether you either go, this is a lifestyle business, we'll do $1 million, $2 million a year, for instance, and that's fine. It'll be a bit painful, but that'll be that.
Yeah.
We either go, we'll sell it and get out and we won't take much, but we'll be out and we can do something else.
Yeah.
Or we go, we are going to compound, and we're going to invest, we're going to consolidate, and we're going to see in 3 years if we can make that back, right? And the reality is that's what we did.
So you mentioned Fergus.
Yeah.
Family?
He's not family, he's not a brother, he's not a lover, he's just coincidentally has the same surname.
Okay.
Met him at university.
Strange.
It's random, isn't it? Really random. Would have probably made more, actually, if we charged someone £1 every time they asked us. We met at uni. He went and did an events business, started an events business. Experiential events, worked with like Monster Energy, Murray Chandon, a lot kind of thing, Boardmasters Festival. Really cool. And then what did he do? He sold his shares in the business because he didn't want to continue with his then business partner. Because I bought, ironically, out at that point, my other business partner. Because I started Pinpoint, had it for 6 months, took on a mate, gave him 50% equity, equity. Fucking mistake that is. Anyway, 3 years later, he wanted to be bought out. So he texted me saying, do you want to buy me out? You can earn twice as much. I said, are you drunk? And he doesn't drink. I said, are you drunk? The answer was no. So I had to buy him out for an astronomical sum at the time. Just coincidentally, my mum was selling a house, so she managed to loan me the money for the buyout. Did that, fine, whatever, another story. Fergus was also coincidentally at that time buying or selling his shares back to his business partner.
Timing was good.
Random, complete serendipity. But he was in Cheltenham at that point. He was down in Sussex doing the business, but he came up to Cheltenham to see me just for a chat. Anyway, that happened. I was like, well, I've bought Henry out, and he's gone. He's fucked off. Like, he's done as of today. That text, you can't carry on after that text. Do you want in? And he was like, well, yeah. And I was like, I'm not giving you the shares because I've learned not to do that because it costs too much. You buy in or you don't come in. He was like, that's okay, that's fine, because I've just sold my shares in my bit. So he bought in for a reduced fee, but bought in. And he brought that strategic and operational side to the business that I don't have.
Yeah.
Because and he'll say the same, he does the boring stuff and I do the more fun, zany, innovation stuff, chatting to people, whatever. But my then business partner also did the same as me, so it didn't work, if that made sense. There was a limit. But ever since then, we've kind of been, we've got the same surname, but we've been kind of two peas in the pod. He does one thing, I do another, but we don't do the same thing because we've got very, very different focuses and enjoyments in life, which works really well. Yeah,
I think that works well when you've got the DNA running straight through both of you that's very similar in terms of what you want to achieve, but you may go about it in a slightly different way because you bring different things to the table, don't you?
100%.
You mentioned about your previous business partner. Yeah. So did you know at the time that things weren't going particularly well, or was there any, was it just a text out the blue?
Yeah, I've still got it. I mean, it was so much out of the blue that it was.
And you've been doing business for how long at that point?
3.5 years. 3.5 years. We're probably doing
a lot of pain going in them 3.5 years together.
700 grand revenue per year, probably, give or take. So when he wanted to be bought out for the value that he did, I mean, our accountant downvalued it by a multiple of 3 versus what I bought him out for.
Right.
But when someone says to you, "Do you want to buy me out?" and you say to them no, they then have to stay in the business, right? They then have to stay in the business, and they're never going to put their all into the business because they evidently want to be there, right? So that was the conundrum I was in. It was like, I want to buy you out because you want to be bought out, but the value that you want to be bought out for, we haven't got the fucking money in the business.
Yeah,
like we're doing 700 grand. There's no way in hell I can pay you what you want to be paid.
Yeah,
right. And again, luck is a massive thing in life generally. Mum happened to be selling her house. She happened to be able to liquidate enough cash to be able to give me the money to be able to buy him out, and then I repaid it over the next year, for instance.
Yeah,
which worked really well. And I actually specifically wrote a contract with my mum to make sure that it was legally binding, to make sure that if I got it wrong, she could take me for whatever she could take me for, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to go, oh great, thanks for the money, yep, I'll spend that, and oh sorry, I can't pay. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wanted to put that structure in place. But that was, I didn't see it coming.
So when the day you got that text, how did you feel when you read it?
Very confused, but also adamant that he was joking. Adamant. Like, I didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
If I'd have seen it coming, I would have probably not been A, as shocked, and B, I'd have been prepared to be able to go, yeah, that's fine, let's talk about the money, rather than, are you drunk?
Yeah.
Or I might have brokered it and gone, actually, it's not working for us, is it?
Because that's a huge message to receive.
Yeah.
You're thinking about how that's going to be thought of in terms of the business. If this person doesn't want to be in the bit, how long has he felt this way? That would get my mind racing for days just to get an explanation of why we're in this position, especially when you go into it together.
He was great, is great, and we're still very, we still chat, we're great mates still.
Yeah.
That's fine. We both had different wants.
Okay.
Right? He was 5 years older than I was.
Right.
He had a goal by the time he was 30. I was still a lot younger.
Yeah.
Right? He wasn't going to get to that point if he stuck with us in the business.
Right.
So he had already made that decision in his mind to go, I can get there quicker if I take this lump from the business now and fuck off. Right? I can put that into property and I can multiply that over the next 5 years. Whereas I was like, no. This is great. We can scale this. We can grow this. I can make good money from it in good time.
Yeah.
And maybe at the end of the tunnel, there might be something bigger.
Yeah.
And we're still on that journey. And there's still so much that we want to do. Moving from going into video into going into Web3, for instance, now, and going into crypto, blockchain, whatever, AR, VR. Really exciting time. But a thing that would never have got to that point had, I think, Henry still been in the business.
Exactly.
And he'll
it's
accept
just a different approach.
And he'll accept Totally different approach. He'll accept that. He's now CEO for Forest Green Rovers Football Club, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So he's CEO for Forest Green. But he left Pinpoint and immediately went into that role because that was where his passion was. He loved football. He wanted to go into that. He could see where he could be at 30. He could see what he could do, and that was his decision. And, for a year and a half, we didn't speak. I thought, you can fuck right off. I've given you mum's money. I haven't got any cash left here.
Yeah.
You are the one that's come out better off. It's not okay.
Yeah.
But you mature. And I realised, actually, it was, whilst painful at the time, a good move.
good move for him and you, by the sounds of things, in hindsight. But difficult at the time because of your relationships and
100%.
all that sort of stuff. 100%. Where the money's come from is tough because it's...
look, if the money was in the business, I don't think I'd be as...
It's personal at that point, isn't it?
Basically.
It's very personal.
It's like, we have basically just given you a house. There you go, Mum's given you a house. You're fucking lucky that she sold it.
So you didn't speak for a year and a half?
No.
Who made the first move to make the communication? That must have been quite a big move for someone to open that channel up again.
That's it. So it was actually the only reason we started speaking again, and I can say it now, is because the share buyback was done wrong, was basically incorrectly done because the money wasn't in the business.
Okay.
So to do a share purchase or a share buyback agreement, you have to have the cash in the business, right, to be able to do it, and you have to pay them in a lump.
Yeah.
You can't pay them in dribs and drabs, right? So the way that it was set up, as far as I can understand, was incorrect. So our current lawyers looked at it when Fergus bought into the business and went, you realise that Henry's technically still a shareholder because this was all wrong. You what? Sorry? Hold on. I've given him 340 fucking thousand quid.
Yeah.
And he's still a shareholder. What? Anyway, we then sued the law firm that did it.
Yeah.
I had to then re-engage Henry to go, Henry, mate, we need to talk about this. We're on the same team here for once, so we're not going against each other.
Yeah.
On the same team. We need to make sure that this company, the law firm, pay you the tax liability and the damages that this has caused, for instance. Okay, cool, we'll chat. And we did. And that was the only reason that we started to talk again, was because my lawyers had gone, that's wrong. And I went, okay, let's get Henry involved because he's clearly part of this now. Not that we were trying to fuck him over or anything at that point. It was, we need to be in this together to get this sorted. And it was, again, serendipity.
I love how life works like that. It's so strange when you look back in, and you can only do it with hindsight and experience, look back at real difference-making points in your life, whether it's about people, money, business, strategy, your own, whatever it is. And a lot of these things just come up because of a certain random situation that occurs, because most of the time, because of a mistake.
Yeah. I mean, it's 9 times out of 10, you get through life with a little bit of luck, a bit of focus, and a lot of mistake. Yeah. Basically.
Well, when I was sitting down with Claudia, she was doing netball.
Right.
Fast forward 4 years, she's for 5 years now, she's playing at the weekend against New Zealand for England.
It is mental.
But she wanted netball. Yeah. And she got thrown a rugby ball in uni.
It's mad, isn't it?
Like, what happens if that hadn't have happened? But that's someone that's got to an elite level.
Yeah.
I just feel like I love these conversations because it kind of a lot is just on situations.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's so
and that's
easy.
why when you're negative, I think you need to keep open-minded to finding situations.
Honestly, I'm one of the most positive people, and it pisses Fergus off to bits, right? Because Fergus is very pragmatic and he's very good with reality, if that makes sense, the here and now.
Yeah.
I'm always 3, 6, 12 months ahead of where we currently are.
Yeah.
Right. That's always been me. But it's like, if something goes wrong for Ferg, he'll go, I need to sort that out. That's a real negative.
Yeah.
Which is a good way of being. Most people are like that.
Yeah.
Right. That's the frontal lobe of your brain being focused on what needs to be sorted.
Yeah.
Right. However, I think I've got more limbic brain in me than I have frontal lobe, which is the chimp part of the brain, right?
Yeah.
In terms of going, okay, I get that that's the logical thing to do, but actually I'm passionate about this. We're going to go over here and we're going to do this, and this is going to be quite good fun.
How does that work in terms of, because the reason why I'm asking this is
work?
I'm working quite, I'm asking this for a reason. You've just described mine and John's relationship, who's my business partner for Guru. Exactly the same. Yeah. If he can find an issue with a situation, he'll find it. If it's to the point where sometimes it's slightly negative, that frustrates me because I look at the situation with an honest hat on, but also in its best light. And I'm looking at, okay, the potential of this. How can we explore this? Not just shutting this down because this bit of paperwork's not what they said it was going to be, for example. It's very, very different approaches, which I think, and I know frustrates him from time to time and frustrates me from time to time. So that relationship seems really similar. How do you guys operate and get through all those situations?
So I think it was fine for the first couple of years because it was like, okay, I'm the founder of the business, so actually if it's a good idea, we'll just go with it. Do you know what I mean? Whereas actually the way that as the business has matured and grown and it's just got a bit bigger, we've got processes in place now where actually technically anything operational, anything fundamentally that has to be done within the business that needs to be done properly, legally and right, goes to Fergus, right? He has an NED, non-exec director. Well, we have an NED that sits above him. He's then got senior leadership below him, right?
Yep.
So he has filters and people to talk to that have experience in X, Y, and Z. So it's not just us muddling through.
Yeah, that's the difference of putting those levels in, isn't
Correct.
it?
But having a third party, an NED, one of the best things we've ever done.
Really?
And that only came to fruition 2 years ago, right? But because when we have tricky conversations, and I'm adamant that we're going to put it on black, and he's like, no, we're going to hedge our bets and do red and black because it's safer, I go, but you're wrong, whatever, fine. The limbic brain comes out and I get very passionate about it. But if you're in the room with the NED, he goes, okay, I can see both of them. Exactly that. Yeah. And actually, it's not a negative to have that set up in a business at all. You know, you and your business partner, it's fantastic that you are passionate and that you want to drive it forwards and you look at the future. And it's great that he wants to do the here and now. Because going back to the point with Henry when I started, he was the same personality type as me.
You're patting yourselves on the back and just doing what you both want to do. Same thing, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. And we've done Enneagrams and Myers-Briggs in the business. Everybody in the business does it, right? So we know if they're a number 8, a number 4, a number 3, whatever it might be. And we know how each person will work with one another, right? From a wings point of view, which is the bits that when you're happy, you go over there. When you're sad, you go over there.
Yeah.
So we know from a structural point of view, great the creative team or the strategic team or the media buying team or the whatever team work well together because they've got the right people in it. So Ferg and I work well together because we know actually we need to have a mediator in the middle. Sometimes if it were to go south or we were to be too passionate and we were both to go to our opposite wings, we need to just put that NED in there just to make sure that we go back to the reality. Yeah. And actually that's great because it does drive the business forward.
It's clever to have that structure, isn't it? Yeah. I like that. So talk to me about your podcast. So talk to me about Success in the Mind. So we're talking, looking at what you're very further down the line than where we are, 60 plus episodes. You've had some great people on, some really, really fantastic people on. I've listened to a few episodes, so I'm an advocate for it. Really, really great. And you've done some sort of a deal with Virgin, that you're on Virgin flights now. So, it seems like the business is going, you've got the trajectory of the business is going in the right direction. Successful. Yeah. You've won awards for business awards, other bits and pieces. You've been or you are a Prince's Trust mentor as well. So you've got experience there, which is great. And the podcast is now taking off really well. We've got some great people on it, some great conversations. So tell me about the podcast and how that's come about and that story.
Yeah. I was bored, literally. I was bored and I thought, this is again, pandemic story. Yeah. I thought, everybody's fucking shit up here. I'm sure I'm not the only person that's going through this specific problem.
Yeah.
Because everybody's going through a problem of sorts right now. So I'm going to go and talk to mostly at that point mates about what they're, one of them was a gin company. Yeah. He happened to have turned what he was doing into making hand sanitizer from an alcoholic point of view, right? Yeah. Makes sense. Cool. Get that. So I was then sitting down with Felix, was his name, from Siblings Gin, and going, and it's still on there, one of the first episodes. What have you done? Why is this going well? Why is this going badly? And having, like we are now, a completely candid conversation, almost like counselling.
Yeah.
You just happen to have a microphone there.
Yeah.
And because of that, and because we had so much downtime as a business during the pandemic, but we run a media business, we had the kit, we had the team, we had the knowledge to be able to go, well, let's just make some shit hot edits here. Let's get them out online. Let's put them onto Apple, onto Spotify, whatever it might be, onto YouTube, onto wherever it was at the time, and we'll just make them good. Because that's all that's all we can do at the moment. It's just we're recutting our teeth and we're keeping ourselves engaged. Cool. We started to get a bit of a following. Started to get a bit interesting. I ran out of mates to talk to, and I was like, I've only got 3. I was like, what am I going to do here? So I then messaged people that I found inspirational personally, and I wanted to know a bit more about.
Yeah.
So I'd go out to who did we have? Harry from Goat. He came on. I thought Harry would be fun. So he now 200-person agency. They're probably going to be influencer agency. They're probably going to be doing, I reckon, the first $1 billion influencer agency in the world in the next 5 years or so. I'd imagine they're 150 million at the moment. So really good. But I thought, how the fuck have you done that in 3.5 years? I want to talk to you.
That's crazy, yeah.
I want to talk to you. So I would say he came on, and obviously he had fuck all to do in the pandemic as well. So he was like, yeah, no worries at all, I'll do that. And that's the point. People had so much time to give you, and having those candid conversations, they could almost ask you questions or take solace in the fact that you were asking them and they were reaffirming their decision. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why did you do that? Well, I did that because of, oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh, okay, cool. So that was interesting. People enjoyed that because it was real and it wasn't fake in any way. And it grew over time. We got to series 3. We managed to get a sponsor. which allowed us to then not have to personally invest in it, right? Because we were putting company time, company money, X, Y, and Z in it. To get the sponsor allowed us to go, cool, let's make this bigger, let's go for some big boys, and we'll have a bit more fun with it. It wasn't much money, but it was enough to kind of break even on it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Gives you a platform to move it forward, doesn't it?
Exactly. So then we started to go, well, who do we aspirationally want to be in bed with as a business, right? Who do we want to work with? Who do we want to talk to? Okay, so there's, Dr. Pawpaw is a prime example. Really nice brand in lots of, Waitrose, for instance, completely nationally.
Yeah.
You can go into a shop and buy it right now. Pauline and Johnny came on a year ago. Last week we signed the deals to do their social, to do their content for their social. Really cool, really nice brand. That's great. Because you've got an hour and a half, 2 hours with somebody, you're building that rapport, they understand you understand them, you happen to make a fantastic episode because you get business and they get business, and you can talk about the same stuff. You are also able to then talk to them about how you can potentially help them, or they can potentially help you.
Yeah.
Our NED came from the podcast, our insurers came from the podcast, our future sponsor, in theory, came from the podcast. 3 or 4 clients have come from the podcast. Our energy providers come from the podcast with Greg Jackson from Octopus Energy. You look at the podcast as like it's almost an incubator for us, and people listen to it and go, "That's really interesting." They're all in the same world, in the same world from an entrepreneurial or a business standpoint, but they're in different sectors, but they're all having the same issues. I can relate to that. And that was kind of how it took off. And then Virgin came because I was a bit ballsy. Have I told you the story about Virgin?
I don't know. I'm really interested to see how you've managed to do that.
So I'll name Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO. You've listened to that?
Yeah.
Okay. He's on British Airways.
He's on BA, isn't he? Yeah.
So we messaged Virgin, and I said, right, guys at Virgin, I had again.
They hate BA.
Well, this is the story, right? Beardy Branson, he doesn't like British Airways. Right? My NED has good contacts at Virgin. Again, it's who you know, it's luck, it's people, it's connections.
Yeah.
I said, right, Chris, Virgin. He's like, no, here's these 2 people's email addresses. I was like, excellent. I'm going to put together a small deck, like a presentation, that tells them about me being dyslexic, dyspraxic, neurodiverse, fucked up at school, won GCSE, got a podcast, whatever. Branson was the main reason I went into business back in the day, in terms of inspiration. And I went, I don't like Diary of a CEO. I credit to what Stephen's done, it's brilliant, but I just thought for the sake of pitching it, I don't like Diary of a CEO or Stephen Bartlett, a bit like Branson doesn't like British Airways.
Yeah.
So
it's a good narrative to follow. Yeah.
British Airways have obviously got Bartlett on there. Why don't we do something and get my podcast on Virgin? Here's the reasons that it aligns, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, that's quite a ballsy pitch, actually. I really like it. So I sent them through the podcast with the listenership with X, Y, and Z on it. And they were like, well, at the moment, we can't actually pay for anything because we've just come out the back end of a pandemic and no planes had flown. Just got fucking money, basically. Would you guys be okay with doing some sort of partnership whereby we can use it on their on all flights internationally, do a bit of PR, put it in the magazine and give you some press around it? I was like, that's absolutely fine. Crack on, go. Yeah. Because a lot of people were going to them going, we've seen that podcasts are starting to become a thing. Do you want to buy it off us? Give us some money, buy it off us. No, we haven't got any money to buy it off you because we're just trying to recover from a pandemic. We were in a fortunate enough position to go, we don't need the money from you guys because we've got the business, we've got the sponsors, but we want the awareness. Yeah. Let's do a deal. If it works, maybe we talk about that down the line. Yeah. And it launched a month ago at the point of recording this podcast.
So how has that changed the trajectory of the podcast in that first month? Is it too early to tell?
Well, the interesting thing is airlines and the systems on them, for instance, from an aircraft point of view, aren't online, if that makes sense.
So you're not really sure of
there's not enough data to be able to pull natively from a day-to-day basis. You can look at it at the end of the campaign, let's say 6 months, but you can't look at it here and now because it has to be pre-uploaded. So it could be going really well. It could be going quite badly.
It's going well.
Well, who knows? I've actually had people send me photos of them listening to it on the plane.
That's great.
Which is really cool. I've got my business development director. She's going on leave to Barbados today. She flies today, and she's currently on a Virgin airline, or on a Virgin flight, flying over there, and she's going to send me some content for TikTok. So hopefully we'll be able to see what it's like when you're going through and having a look at it. It'll be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I've actually got in my bag the in-flight magazine. I picked it up in London because I was going there to meet them yesterday.
Nice.
And they gave it to me, so it's pretty fun. Yeah.
They're an amazing brand. I mean, like you, I like and have read Branson's story, watched, listened, all the books multiple times. He's very much into just that kind of differentiator, making a difference, doing things in his own way, not interested in anybody else, and then being very stubborn and to the point when people are trying to fuck him over. Things like the BA thing was, I mean, what an idea to have to
Yeah.
That's an incredible story.
I think it's, and I just love the idea of having fun.
But really smart, intelligent way of operating, because you know the journey, you know the story, you understand the both the businesses' friction, and you've used that with quality, with what you've done with the podcast so far, to then go and look at the opportunity. It's a really astute bit of work.
It was, for me, it was just, I thought that
you probably think you're just having a laugh with it.
I was. No, I genuinely was. I sent it to my EA and I said, B, check this out. Have a look at our presentation. You can't send that. You can't send. I was like, why can't we send that? And we did, and it was a bit of a giggle. But I just love the idea of having fun when you're doing business, whether you're presenting, you're pitching, you're selling, you're working, you're founding a company. If you can't have fun, don't bother doing it. I sort of came up with a saying which I kind of live by now, which is there's never a good time to start a business, but in business you should always have a good time.
Yeah.
And by that, you're never going to know if today, tomorrow, next year, or next month is the right point to go, let's go into this world of entrepreneurialism.
Yeah.
But when you do, make sure you're having fun.
Yeah.
If you get so much of the time, you are unable to actually go out and have fun with your friends because you're invested in the business.
Yeah.
So if you're not having fun in the business,
you're not having fun as a
I'm
person,
sorry,
are you?
but it's not going to work. You know.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, isn't it? Because I think back to really stressful periods that we've had, and I look back quite in detail, and there's times where, as an owner, you've kept up that front and you're genuinely are still having a good time, even though there's a lot on and it's busy, and it's enjoyable because it's busy, even though it's a bit stressful from time to time. It's not every single day, but it is intense, it's busy, and you enjoy, and you've got a thirst for that life. And then there's times where I think I've kind of hermited a bit, where things have got really tough, and I've hermited under my shell, which is very unlike me. I've maybe worked a little bit more at home than what I should, and people don't know anything wrong necessarily, but they're also not stupid as well. And you kind of think, well, I'm not really leading properly here. I'm certainly not having fun because I'm stressed to fuck. You know, what does fun even look like? And I've lost myself sometimes over my journey so far. Try not to, but I do sometimes lose myself in that when things get really intense, because you think I'm doing the right thing by the company, me, my family, the people, I'm knuckling down, I'm doing all this ugly work that I don't want to do, I'm getting stuck in, and you actually think, well, a week's gone by and I've done fuck all else. I've not had a good time, I've not seen the office, I've not not spoken to my people, I've not led properly, I've not inspired anybody, I've not talked about our journey, I've not talked about the wins, the losses, the challenges. I've just hermited because it's difficult, and I think as a leader it's easy to do that.
Oh, it's really easy, and actually something I really, really like doing, and tonight is actually the night that we're doing it. Every single year we have a focus on 3 dinners. So there's we did one last night. So you have the Christmas party for the whole team. Everyone comes together, massive piss up, we have a lot of fun. We don't talk about work, we have a lot of fun. Last night was the SLT, Senior Leadership Team dinner. A lot of fun. Don't talk about work. Well, we do for the day, but after that you go out and you get pissed and you have a bit of fun. Tonight is the director's dinner. So my business partner and I go out and have fun. We then like to have pointless pints, right? And this pointless pints thing is really important, because whenever something goes wrong, or there's an argument, or you're stressed, or whatever it might be, it doesn't have to be alcohol. It can be it could be Coke, it could be water, whatever. Going and sitting down and just getting yourself out of the office, having that pointless pint and conversation around anything is a great distraction, but allows you to not be too ingrained in the day-to-day of the business at that point.
Because that makes a massive difference 100%. In terms of how you are as a person.
100%, which is exactly why we do these things with senior team or with Christmas party or whatever, because you have to be able to celebrate. You have to be able to put the money back in and go, guys, fucking well done. Even if we made no money, we'd still go, guys, let's go out and have a bit of fun. Because you can't be in it day to day, every single minute, going grind. If you can't you can't sit back and go, let's just enjoy something. Even if it's just going out for a sandwich in Pret, find the time, find those little.
Have you ever felt as a leader, as a business owner, that you've been in a position where things have been really stressful, really strenuous, really intense, and you felt that you can't enjoy it? You can't enjoy it.
Yeah. Growing a business organically gives you that. It's very difficult sometimes when you're growing it organically to actually have points within it that you can take your foot off the gas, because if you have investment, it's a different type of pressure, but you have the money in there.
You're answering to somebody, and that keeps
it keeps you focused, right? But it also allows you to, so you get given £5 million worth of investment, right? You know where you're going, you know your burn rate, you know what you need to invest that in, you don't need to make a sale today to be able to fund tomorrow, if that makes sense, because you have that 3-year growth plan. Yes, you've got to answer to a board or investors or whatever it might be, but it's a totally different type of pressure, Whereas for me, who's grown this business completely organically, you have nobody to answer to, which sometimes is a bad thing. Hence the reason we've got NEDs in now, because I like that ability to go, no, sorry, I've maybe made a mistake there, and them ask me questions and me ask them questions. But also, when you are growing organically, you have to sell. You have to be able to self-fund the business, and that is a huge amount of pressure. And you're very, very difficult to actually find enjoyment out of that sometimes when your pipeline isn't there. You know, when you look at 3 months ahead and you go, fuck, actually, you know, if we don't sell anything in the next month, our burn rate's 3 months, we're out of business. You know, then you've got a whole load more. You've got to focus. You're in the business. You can't take your foot off. You can't go and enjoy it. You can't go on holiday. You have to check your emails. You can't see your friends, whatever. You know, that is a spiral.
I think that's worse for the not over emotional. Sorry, I'll change that. I think that's worse for the passionate person in that relationship, in that business ownership partnership, because you're meant to be the passionate, charismatic, inspirational guy that is positive 24/7. It can be serious when he wants to be, but you've got to be that guy that's leading and doing that stuff. When you know you've got some terminal stuff coming, and if you don't pick it up, probably yourself, that is a tremendous pressure. And that's something that I've felt over 4 years that's been a struggle to deal with. And I think there's been times where I've dealt with it okay and nobody would know. And there's been times where in the last 2 years, I think probably I would say, if I'm speaking openly, 3-4 months of that 2 year period where I haven't even recognised who that person is. And that's me. Like, I've not been the same person through those periods. And maybe that's a choice. Maybe that's just I'm letting stress get too much for me when it happened, or over worrying about stuff I can't control. I mean, I've tried to think about really how I got into that position and how I got myself out of it and how I can stop myself getting into that position again. And I think it was kind of, I look back at it, and I said to Sophie, my partner, last week, only this last week did I kind of clock it, was during that 3-4 month period, I didn't have a light at the end of the tunnel. Didn't have anything to go for. Sounds weird, like I want to work hard because I want my people to have a great opportunity. I want us to run a good business. I want to have pride. I want to be successful. I want to look after my own family. I've got another kid on the way in January. I want to make sure I take a good amount of time off to enjoy that experience, because I never did that before. There's so many things driving, but there wasn't a light at the end of the tunnel. I felt like there was that much stress and intensity and people coming at us, other companies coming at us and costing us business to the tune of like half of what our payroll would cost in one deal, which fucking hurt. You know, and made a huge impact on us during that time last year, through no fault of our own at all. You know, we're working on that deal for 4 years. Even before the business was starting, we were conjuring something up. And we lost it because of something completely out of our control, which put our business in turmoil. And nobody knows that out there, actually. But it did. And it was difficult to deal with. Really difficult to deal with.
Well, it is. And actually, I've been in situations where I've put money into an idea and it's not worked. You know, and it's similar to that, where you put your life and your soul into it and it doesn't work.
You feel like you want it more than the other person wants it sometimes, don't you?
The money is easy to lose, but it's the passion. When you lose the passion, that's the hardest to get back. You know, and I know that's a very throwaway comment, but, you know, whether it's £10, £20, 100 grand, whatever it is, depending on your personal circumstance, what you can and can't lose, you know, losing money is never a good thing, but it's far, far, far easier to get back than it is losing your passion. Do you know what I mean? If you lose your passion for this business right now, I can guarantee you that it's going to be over. You know, and then you lose everything. Then you lose the money as well. Then you lose your future, right? But if you just lose the cash, you look at another way to get that cash. Because you've still got that passion, which drives
you looking at the opportunity.
And I think that's critical. You'll never be able to start a business, grow a business, exit a business if you haven't got an element of passion and an element of just grit.
How do you keep your work ethic high and your passion high?
I set myself goals. Regularly, goals. And I've had goals from when I started, from like 18, I want to be this or do this, 25 this, 30 this, whatever. And they might not even be goals that anyone else would associate with me or even frankly think that is a goal. Do you know what I mean? It might just simply be, I want an extra hour in bed every Friday morning in the next year. You know, at the end of next year, I want to be able to work half days on Friday, for instance. That's not my goal, but that could be a goal, for instance. It could be that you want to, you know, buy a new car or whatever it might be. By setting myself these metrics, these goals, these are things that I can KPI myself on, drives me to make the business bigger, the business better, the culture better, the people happier, and fundamentally make sure that I'm staying as sane as I can.
So discipline must be important with that, because for somebody watching and listening to this, when it goes out, they could turn around and say to you, well, you could have Fridays off now. And it's your business.
Yeah.
You could have that off now. You're the guy that makes the decision. It's not going to impact the business too much. Why wouldn't you do it now?
And that's really interesting, because different people would, I think. And for me, I'm never about working less, and none of my goals have ever been to work less. You know, we're currently going through a fund for a completely different business of ours that is actually not a business, it's a concept. It's a TV program, actually, nice. Which is very cool. But that takes extra time, right? Mm-hmm. So we're kind of making ourselves busier again. And for me, it's for what really motivates me is innovation.
Yeah.
Is coming up with ideas, not stagnating, and making something bigger than the sum of its parts, right?
Yeah.
So I'm never going to go, great, I've grown a business to whatever we are these days, I'm going to take Fridays off, put my feet up and go and play tennis, you know? Not interested in that at all. What I would do is I'd go, right, guys, we've got a business that's as big as it is now. I'm going to take Fridays off to start another business, or to go and do something that is going to grow into something bigger than the sum of its parts, right? And again, goals are different for different people. Most of my goals are not even time focused. They're more ability focused, if that makes sense.
Okay, that's interesting.
So they're more, I want the ability to go and live in Dubai, or live in France, or live in Italy, but I'll never not focus on the work because of that goal. Do you know what I mean? So they're never going to impact the work. It's always going to be scale. We're always going to be scaling it. So
if you're somebody, and I know for a fact because we've spoken to hundreds of the people over the last sort of 14 months of the 14 months of the podcast, a lot of people have jobs, want to start something.
Yeah.
Little side hustle. You know, everything great starts from a side hustle. Because of your experience, what little nuggets of advice, maybe 2 or 3 little snippets of advice, would you give to people that are currently employed, that maybe want to go and do something for themselves, but they're not really sure on whether they want to take the risk, or whether they can make it work, or whether they've got enough knowledge and experience to go and do it?
Use the employer's time, firstly. Don't throw the towel in and go, right, this is the best idea, you know, since sliced bread, I'm going to be selling this stuff from a dropship point of view, and leave your job. That's the biggest mistake you can make. What you should do is just a couple of hours in an evening, maybe a weekend or so, and just try this idea out. Put a little bit in, and something that you can afford to lose. Just test it, iterate it, see if it works, see if it has a bit of traction. Just put one product out, or just do a bit of market research within the sort of scope of your employment, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do not risk leaving your job, because if the concept works, then you might want to look at dialing back the days from your job, putting a bit of time into that business and working part-time in your current employment. When it really starts to take off, then you might have the confidence to throw the towel in fully with that employed job and go fully self-employed. But people that go, this is the best thing, I know I need to go and get funding for it, and the investor's going to want to see me in that business full-time, so I'm going to quit this job on 100 grand a year. Massive mistake, huge mistake, because actually you look at it and you go, where's the security? You're going to just then use the investor's money to fund your salary. Yeah. So actually that money's not going to be used quite as effectively as if you had a salary coming in from somebody else. Yeah. Even if 50% of it was coming in from somewhere else, you've got double the time. Exactly. Yeah. So I think it's personal circumstances for sure. I think if I were employed and I had an idea, I'd put the additional hours in above and beyond where I'm currently at, if that makes sense, to test, iterate, make it work, and have proof of concept. Yeah. That for me would be what I'd do. But it does differ. How have you dipped into things like your crypto and Web3 and stuff like that? Is that something you're actively doing quite a bit on, or have you sort of dipping your toe? Yeah. How's that all? I actually sold all my crypto. I had mainly Ethereum and a bit of Bitcoin, but I got rid of it. And I think the thing is, everything I do is not because I want to make money from it. Do you know what I mean? It's because I want to learn about it or be involved with it. So next year, one of my goals, let's go back to the goals, next year I want to invest in businesses. Right? Got a couple of businesses that I'm looking at doing at the moment, or investing in at the moment. It doesn't have to be massive money, but the reason I want to do that is because I want to understand and be in that world and that market, but not risk loads, if that makes sense. Know that they're doing it well, but go on that journey with them, if that makes sense. So the reason I get involved with things like that is because I just find them fascinating. I just find things interesting, like crypto, like Bitcoin, like blockchain and Web3, interesting enough for me to invest my time or a bit of money. And if I have to put a weekend every month into learning about blockchain, that's more than most people will do. Would you say
a fair comment would be that one of your long-term goals is to, you seem like someone who's really keen on learning constantly, consistently and constantly wanting to learn new things.
Yeah, and I think...
Do you get bored quick?
Oh yeah, really bored. Yeah, like properly bored. I sit in meetings and I'm like 15, 20 minutes. If I'm in a meeting longer than half an hour, you've done really well.
Yeah.
All the meetings are going really badly.
Yeah.
Really badly, and we're not making any headway. That said, yesterday, for instance, with our SLT meeting, we knew it was going to be a day, but we chunk it up. So we know we've got half an hour windows to talk about certain things. So we're constantly on sprints and focuses.
Yeah.
Always want to learn, but the reason I want to learn is because actually I think there's better ways of doing stuff. Right, so we're looking at developing a platform next year for our current business, because the way that we currently operate the business, we have to use 6 different fucking platforms to be able to get one thing done.
Yeah.
Right, and there's no super platform out there, or super app as they're now calling it, that allows you to aggregate that together and make the whole thing more efficient. Right, but if you don't learn, you're never going to know how to do that, or you're never going to understand if it is or isn't out there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I know full well that Web3, blockchain, and that world will be something.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it will be, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know that it is absolutely worth investing and having a punt on. Do I know if it's do I know if it's Bitcoin? Do I know if it's Ethereum, Matic? Do I know if it's Decentraland or Spatial or Roblox or whatever it is? Well, no, the answer is no. But what I do know is that they're out there.
Yeah, something's happening in that world.
You know, all of those things that I've just said, I know that they're there, which is more than most people, for instance, that will think of blockchain or crypto, which then allows you to go, tell me more about that.
Yeah.
And eventually you'll be able to put together an argument or make a decision based on the education that you've got.
Well, if you haven't done the theory and you haven't learned it and understood that world, then if an opportunity does present itself, you won't see it.
Yeah. You
But
don't
if you
know
do,
what you don't
you'll
know.
see it, and that could be potentially another opportunity or...
Yeah. You just don't know what you don't know. And that's the reality of it. I was with a guy, you'll know him, James Kahn from Dragon's Den. He used to be one of the investors. I was with him, he's a client of ours, talking to him about what his rule of thumb is, if that makes sense. And his rule of thumb is the rule of 3, right? So if he doesn't know something, he'll sit there and he'll go, okay, let's say we want to get an IT department in, for instance. He'll go, right, go and IT department come in. He'll choose 3 of them, for instance. One of them will come in. He won't know anything about it. He'll listen to them and he'll go, okay, fine, good, got it. The next IT department, or IT reseller or whatever, will come in and he'll know a bit more about it. So he'll be able to ask more pointy questions, right? Because he's had the first person come in and ask and pitch to him. The third person comes in, and you're pretty well educated by that point because you've listened, you've understood, they're probably pretty similar, so you know what pointy questions to ask and really where to get to. Yeah. And that is a very simplistic but quite an interesting way of breaking down learning, if that makes sense. Ask 3 questions about the same subject to different people, and you'll get an average. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You'll get an understanding, you'll be able to start to form an opinion. It might not be right, but the point is it allows you to start to go on that journey.
But you're more informed. If
Exactly.
you've listened to 3 specialists in their industry and you've taken, even if they're saying different type things, it's you'll take bits of all 3 conversations and compute your own opinion on stuff, won't you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, what do you think inspires you the most?
What inspires me the most? Person, or as in just
in general?
What inspires me the most? That's a really difficult question, actually. I don't know what inspires me. I think, as I said, making something bigger than the sum of its parts is hugely important to me, and one of my major driving factors. Being different and making something for somebody that is useful is a big inspiration of mine. But I've never really thought about what inspires me the most. I've never really thought about it. I know people that do.
Yeah.
But I don't know what inspires me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It certainly isn't money. It certainly isn't freedom. It certainly isn't being able to go on holiday. All the tangible things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's probably why I can't summarize it. I can't summarize it because it's not a tangible. It's not a physical piece.
I always ask the question, and a lot of people struggle to answer because I think it's also time specific. Because things can inspire you at different times. It's dependent on how you feel emotionally, things that are going on in your life. It is interesting. It's definitely not the material stuff with most people, is it?
No, I mean everyone. I think everybody has part of wanting to have something. No one's going to go, right, fuck it, I don't want to have a house.
Yeah.
Like there's always part of being in life, generally living, that you want to have the best possible lifestyle. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But within your means. But I don't want to sit here and go, right, I'm in business because I want to have 4 Ferraris in a mansion.
Yeah.
Because frankly, I couldn't give 2 shits about that. I'll just have like a really nice house, happy family, nice car. That'll do me, for instance. And I actually haven't got a car. I've sold my car. I don't have a car. I drive a van. You know, and everyone looks. I used to have, candidly, hand on heart, I used to have a Range Rover. Really nice, brand new Range Rover, one of my goals. Great, cool, tick that box. Year ago, sold it. And now I just drive the company vans because I don't care about what people think when they look at you.
Has that changed over time?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. One of my goals, 25 Range Rover. That was one of my goals.
Yeah.
Did it. Great. Sold the car a year ago. And people go, what are you going to buy now? And I'm like, I'm just not going to buy a car.
Yeah.
We've just ordered 2 more vans.
So what's the mindset change? What is that?
I've scratched the itch, mate. I really, in all honesty, I've scratched that itch and I've gone, I thought I wanted to have a nice car. And I did at the time. Did it make me any happier than not having the car? No, really. Not really. I can still drive to the pub. Can't drive back after a beer though, but I can drive to the pub. I can drive see a mate, I can go see whatever I can do. You can do that in a van, you can do that on a bike, you can do that in a fucking Range Rover. It doesn't matter what vehicle it is. Yeah. I loved it when I had it. Very cool, loved it. Big goal of mine. Did it. Do I need to go and buy another car that's big and flashy? Absolutely not.
So maybe that goal didn't live up to your expectations.
I think that's the reality. So when you say what inspires me, I know it's not going to be going and buying a Ferrari. I know it's not going to be going and buying a big house. But I do know that it will be something to do with making, if for instance I couldn't work, I'd still want what I've created to be able to function. Yeah. I think it's the reality.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I can sense that passion coming through you. So, Oliver, if anybody wants to reach out to Pinpoint or learn more about your podcast or speak to you because of your sort of experiences, your journey, and what you're doing in the future, where can they find you?
Good question. So you can type in oliverbruce.co.uk and that'll be my website. It's got the podcast Successes in the Mind on. Yeah. Obviously they can fly Virgin Atlantic.
Get that one in there.
Get that one in there.
It's part of the deal.
Actually, it wasn't actually. I just quite like saying it. Pinpoint-media.co.uk is the business, is the main mothership, is the main business. Or just type in Oliver Bruce on LinkedIn and I'd connect with everybody.
You might pop up.
Might do. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, look, Oliver, thanks for giving us your time. I think there's tons and tons of takeaways. For me personally, there's some stuff that I'm going to really think about the conversation when we go back through it and do the editing, the cuts and stuff. And I think, podcast really inspirational. Keep it going. And it's given me something to aspire to, because you're at a different level of where your podcast is, given your experience and given what's at your disposal because of your sort of core business, but also you're 3 times as many episodes deep. Some of the people you've had on are people that I follow, use their products regularly, so they're really inspirational people, and I think it's all put together really, really well.
Thank you.
Really good level of quality, and it kind of gives us something to aim for and punch for in terms of reaching up that little bit higher and having better conversations with more people, more meaningful conversations, and doing that in a very honest and truthful way, which is what it's all about.
You don't ask, you don't get. That's the reality.
No, thank you very much for coming on.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.